It has been 2 years in the making. Well, longer than that, actually. And I could not be more excited to announce the launch of the Murdy Memoir. And welcome back to the Murdy Creative Co podcast. I'm your host, Colin Murdy, and today's topic is the memoir. But first, I want to say thank you to everyone who has supported the company so far. If you haven't got a chance, go check us out on the web at murdycreative.co. That's MURDY creative.co. This product has been years in the making. Specifically, actually, it's been about 2 and 3 months in official production as far as the manufacturing and the prototyping goes. But I wanted this years before that. I have always loved good pens. My father loves good pens, and when I was a kid, he instilled that love in me, and I grew up in Janesville, Wisconsin, as I've talked about before, where the Parker Pen Company was headquartered for a very long time. And so I have always loved good pens. And it was my dream for a very long time to manufacture the best pen I could, the best pen out there. And about 2.5 years ago, we had an opportunity because of the way that our leather business had been progressing and the process to our journals that we had been working on to purchase a machine, a 4-axis CNC mill. And it was at that point that the inkling of making our own pen really began. Now, I've loved a good click pen. I think a good quality click is just the best fidget toy that could possibly be. And I know I'm not alone because it's something that people find very annoying. And I didn't want our pen to be like others. There's a lot of bolt action metal pens out there. There's a lot of ones where you click it and then you have to press a button on the side to release it. I wanted a classic just click pen. Something you could easily carry and use, and it would be something that would be just satisfying. And after I had purchased the machine, the 4-axis mill, the opportunity to say, now we could actually manufacture our own metal pen came as an idea, came to a possibility. But at the beginning, I didn't have an answer as to how to do the click. For those of you who know much about ballpoint pens, click pens, the methodology that the Parker Jotter, for example, and virtually every other pen like it that uses a type of cam mechanism that looks a little bit like a crown with teeth. And as you click it, it rotates throughout those crowns. It's a very cool design, and the Parker Jotter is, like all of those pens, the way, plastic molded on the inside, because it's about the only way to manufacture the kind of teeth internally that's used in a click mechanism. So metal pens don't traditionally use a click crown mechanism just due to the fact that it's almost impossible to manufacture it the way that it's made in plastic, because blow molding allows for you all to do all sorts of different kinds of shapes that you couldn't otherwise machine. And back when the ballpoint pen, the Parker Jotter, was first released in 1954, plastic was a miracle material. It was amazing. It was excellent, and it was able to be made into these fantastic shapes. That was really cool. But as time has gone on, we have become a world inundated in plastic. And I think we've lost a lot of the value of good quality, heavy metal pens. Something that gives it some weight. And a good pen is a special thing, right? A friend of mine I was talking the other day, and she was talking about how her friend was going to sign adoption papers for their 6th child that they're adopting. And I just marveled, and I said, wouldn't it be a wonderful thing if she was to sign those adoption papers with a special pen, and then on that child's 18th birthday, give them that pen? Pens are so meaningful. They connect us with so many pieces of our history. They connect us with milestones, important things. Our marriage certificates are signed with pens, right? Pens are the way in which we express our ideas that are in our heads in a physical manifestation. And so for me, the creation of a pen was something that was always very cool. But without a good click mechanism, without a good manufacturing click mechanism, I thought to myself, okay, I don't have a good first step, because the click is the first step. It's the foundation of all the pen. I knew the design that I wanted for the body, and what you see here today is roughly exactly what I had in mind for the body. There was a couple of fundamentals that I wanted. It needed to be roughly 3/8 inch diameter on the outside, which fits within our pen loops, but is about the largest that naturally fit within our pen loops. It's roughly the same diameter and at its grip point as a classic Pilot G2 and other pens. So it solved one of the big complaints people had with the jotters, which is that they were too small. And I agree with that. So it had to have a good body to it, good size diameter for that. It needed to be able to work with the Pilot G2 refills. And since that was a part of the original brief, we've expanded that. It works with all sorts of amazing refills. All of the Pilot G2 and all of its variants, the Sharpie Gel, the Zebra Sarsa Dry, a whole bunch of these awesome refills that are of that variety, that dint. And I also wanted it to work with the Parker Jotters. So to do that, we accomplished that via a spacer that went behind the Parker Jotter that gave it a little extra length, and by doubling up on the springs so that the click mechanism, whether you're using a Parker Jotter refill or you're using it with the G2 with one spring, has roughly the same click feel. So that was something where I knew that those were going to be the core elements. I knew it needed to have a clip because I had looked around at a lot of the other metal pens looking to buy one for myself, and none of them had a clip I really liked. And I'm a big believer that the clip is where a lot of the magic happens. The clip is something that it gives the pen a directionality to it. It gives the pen something that is obviously very practical, and that it gives you a place to hold the pen, but it also gives the pen a lot of its personality is found in the clip. And Parker has known this for years because they use their classic arrow shape as part of their branding on their on their clips. So for me, I knew that that was going to be a really important thing, and I couldn't find anyone that did it that I liked. There are a lot of made in USA pens out there. There's a lot of metal made in USA pens out there. But I dare say that there isn't that has quite the right clip. And especially, I think we've really nailed that to be something special. But I digress. The clicker was the core. And it came in about March of 2 years ago. It was March of 24. No, 23? I think it was 23 or 24. I can't remember. It was 24. Yeah, because we're 2 years now. So it would have been March of 24 that I originally had the initial inkling of the idea. And the initial version, the initial variation, was based off of a heart shape. I'd seen the bolt action pens, and I thought to myself, it would be great if you could do something where it would have an onboarding click and then an offboarding click. And my initial versions had kind of had that same vibe where it was like the bolt action pens. There was some sort of follower that kind of went in a track, and the idea was to use like a heart shape. And then it dawned on me it'd be way better if the track was built into the clicker itself, and we used ball bearings. Now, I began that process in March, and it took about 94 variations of the clicker before I found one that actually worked reliably the way it was supposed to. And it wasn't until much later that I actually learned that there is a patent for a heart shape cam mechanism pen, kind of like what I'd come up with from the 1960s. But here's the thing, I abandoned that heart shape pretty quickly because I realized that it didn't have the balance it needed to have. And because the heart was on one side and the follower, the ball bearing, was on the one side, the clicker tilted away from that ball bearing, and it created this weird kind of offset feeling that when you clicked it, you could, if you knew what you were feeling for, you could feel the asymmetry. And I quickly changed over to a continuous track. And if you think about it, it looks roughly like the shape of an M, which is convenient, purely coincidental, but convenient nevertheless, where the ball onboards and it hits the top of that first M, and then it falls down into a notch. And when you click it again, it gets knocked off of its notch and falls back down to the starting position. And by diametrically opposing two ball bearings and two symmetric tracks on either side that are continuous, it allows the clicker to rotate. Very simply, around its axis. And you can feel, if you feel very carefully, you can actually feel that tiny little twist at the very top when it hits that little M part, and it aligns it. Now, by locking the ball bearings underneath the collar that makes up the clip, by having the track be a uniform continuous mechanism, continuous cam, it allows you to manually index between positions, which means not only can you click it loudly, if you move slowly, you can click it with almost no sound at all. And if for whatever reason something were to get jammed up in the mechanism, you can actually manually move it between the positions. You can manually move it backwards even if you had to, right? So it allows for much better control if something were to get mixed up in the mechanism for you to fix it. For 2 years, I had anticipated locking the mechanism tightly closed. I didn't want to have to go through the process of patenting it, because patenting things is expensive, and then you have to defend the patent, and there's a whole process involved. And so I had really not wanted to do the patent process. My idea was if I could lock it underneath the clip and I could fix the clip in place, I wouldn't have to worry about someone stealing the idea, because they would have to destroy the mechanism to get it apart. But whenever you've got two metal things that rub together, they create what's called galling, but it's metal shavings, tiny little metal shavings that form like a dust or a dirt. And it can get inside the mechanism, and the friction causes the mechanism to kind of feel kind of gritty over time and all that other good stuff. And so I had gone through from prototype 94 to about 127 were the prototypes where I'd basically refined that track. The first one that really worked was 94, but it didn't work as well as I wanted. It wasn't until about 127 that I really nailed down the track design, where the specific orientations, the angles, the way that this shape is, all of the measurements came together so that it was perfect. And then from prototype 127 to 154, I went through every possible variation of coating. I went through different variations on alloys. We did different combinations of metals. It was a whole process to try to figure out how to solve the problem of galling. Because I didn't want you to have to oil your pen. People don't want to put oil in their cars. So I didn't want to have to be something where there was a lot of heavy maintenance with this. I wanted it to be something where it just worked regularly. And so the quest to figure out how to solve the galling took... Well, the track took about a year of development to really nail it down, and then the galling problem took about another year. So from and maybe not quite a year, it was about February where I found the solution to the galling. And that led to the second major breakthrough, which is what we call our jeweled movement. Now, it's not technically jeweled. I will 100% cop to that. The reason I call it the jeweled movement is because it comes from watch movements, which are jeweled. It dawned on me in the spring that we didn't need to solve this problem for the first time. For a long time in history, there has been a very substantial effort to try to figure out how to make small metal things rub together and not gall, not wear. And you can't always use oil. And the best example of this is in fine watch movements. Fine watch movements use tiny, usually rubies, sometimes sapphires, it depends, pressed into the mechanism where things sit. So if you've got something that spins, the spring that moves between the motions, the pendulum in it, it sits where the tip of it rests on a jewel. And so that jewel, because it's a very hard, very flat, and a chemically different surface than the metal, it doesn't have the wear pattern, right? So watch movements will sometimes say 14 jeweled or 21 jeweled, all of these different things. So it dawned on me in one night when I was thinking about this that I'm like, we can use the same concept in our pen. 3 days prior to this breakthrough, I had decided in conversation that I'd had with Meryl that rather than making the whole system sealed and not come apart, I needed to make it so that it could come apart. Not only for regular cleaning, if you wanted to clean it, not only because we have people who work in dirty and dusty environments, and if for whatever reason dirt or dust got into it, it being sealed would potentially create problems, but also because it needed to be able to be serviced if someone needed to replace a part or something went wrong, which happens, right? We want to back this pen. We are backing this pen by our 120-year warranty. And so because we are backing it by that, it needs to work for 120 years. And if it doesn't work, we need to be able to fix it. We need to be able to replace pieces. We need to be able to do things to make it better, right? By the way, if we can't, we'll just send you a new one, but that's beside the point. We wanted this to last. So because of that, I decided that we needed to be able to take the clicker apart, and it needed to have the cap thread off. And so because the cap was going to be able to be threaded off, it created a huge nightmare from a production standpoint. But the end result is rather nice, and it's rather a beautiful solution when it's all said and done. So right as soon as I figured out a solution that would theoretically solve the galling problem, because you could clean it if there was galling, we also eliminated the need for that by coming up with the jeweled watch mechanism. The jewels in question are actually not jewels in the traditional sense. They are silicon nitride ball bearings that are embedded and swaged in place at 120 degree intervals and rotated 60 degrees. So it creates, functionally, if you were looking at it straight on, a 6-point system that constrains the movement of the clicker within the barrel. And so when the mechanism is riding, when that clicker is riding up and down on that smooth, polished barrel, it is riding on 6 ball bearings that are fixed in place and embedded. So it's ceramic touching the stainless steel. Similarly, the ball bearings that follow in the track are that same silicon nitride. So while we can't call this an all-metal pen because there's silicon nitride in the clicking mechanism, it's better than an all-metal pen. It's a ceramic click mechanism. It means that there's no metal-on-metal contact in the clicker. It's silicon nitride on the stainless steel. So that solution was a huge breakthrough, and it solved, I mean, it makes for a very, very smooth click. And one of the best parts of the click is while it is very smooth when it comes out of the box, and we take great pride in that, it actually improves over time because the silicon nitride ball bearings are extremely hard. They have like a 70 Rockwell HRC. And I'm going to mention that it doesn't mean much to people who don't know what that means, but what it means is that it's very, very hard. Because it's very, very hard, it resists any sort of scratching or wear. And what actually happens is this, despite the fact that this is made of 17-4 stainless steel, which has been hardened, and I'll explain why that's important in a little bit, even at its 42 Rockwell C, because the ball bearings are so much harder, as you click it, those ball bearings run in that track and they polish it over and over and over and over. So as time goes on, that mechanism gets smoother and smoother and smoother to the point where it just glides, because the ball bearings continue to continue to smooth those drive surfaces. So those breakthroughs were the new click mechanism with the continuous path and the opposing ball bearings and the click with the jeweled, as I call it, mechanism inside, where it was riding along those ceramic ball bearings that were fixed in place. Collectively, those became something where I said, it's just, we have to patent this. It's too good of an idea. And the fact that the threading off of the cap will allow you to take it apart means that we could deal with people who'd be able to try to steal it. So we're going to go through with the patenting process. And I filed the patent myself, which was a whole process, and a very interesting one at that. And it led to some really cool artwork that I made, and I'm very proud of the patent artwork, which is available on the memoir page, and you can see it there. And we're expecting to hear back in a little while, but in the meantime, we can call it patent pending. And I'm very proud of the design. I'm very proud of the click. Realistically, all of this pen, not with the new click, but all of the pen with the old click mechanism, had been finished roughly last summer. And all that was left to do was the clip. And I sent out an email last summer explaining that the clip was the big blocker. And people had emailed back saying, well, I take the clip off mine. And that was a very interesting thing for me to hear, because I hadn't even considered that as a possibility. But what it did was it opened up the door for me to say, okay, while I had imagined that the clip was going to be fixed in place at that time, I now am happy to say that the clip can be taken off using the threaded method, and it can be unthreaded, and it can be replaced with a collar that doesn't have a clip. And in fact, we are going to offer a no-clip version of the memoir on the product page, where instead of having this nice clip, it'll have a continuous collar that will screw down and perform the same operation. And while the people that had said, well, I don't want a clip on mine, you should just launch it without a clip, while I hear them and I respect their choices, and that's why we're offering that, I wanted it to have a clip. That was a big part of why we'd been developing it, and the clip was going to be very important. Most clips are stamped. That's been a design for clips for a very long time, and realistically, with the clips being stamped, it makes perfect sense from a manufacturing perspective for most pens, particularly plastic pens, because you can make them very quickly and you can make them relatively the same. And plastic pens don't normally have the same accuracy requirements for tolerances. I had a friend of mine who was a tool and die maker who helped me immensely in this process, who came one night in August of last year, and we sat down and I explained to him all of the design elements for what I wanted to accomplish with the stamped clip at the time. And remember, it was going to be fixed in place. So the idea was we'll stamp the clip out, we will heat it up, it'll expand, we will put it over the barrel, we'll put the barrel together, we'll put it over, and it'll tighten down, and it'll be press fit in place and heat shrunk in place, so it will never come off. That was the original kind of idea. And I sat down with him and we played out all of how the stamping would need to go. And he said, this is going to require roughly 8 stamping dies to do all of the different pieces you want to do with this clip. And even then, it's likely to be not quite the way you need it to be because of some technical difficulties with drawing the metal as deep as it needed to be. And so because of that, he had expressed to me his reticence to the idea that this could be stamped. And he said, it's going to take you 6 months minimum to make these dies. And that's with you making them and with you remaking them and having to tweak them to get them right. And even then, you're probably not going to get the results you want, because the problem is that the dies will heat up as you stamp. And because they heat up, they change their dimensions ever so slightly. And the clips that will come off won't maintain that tight tolerance you need to provide that interference fit, which is what it's called when you heat shrink something over the top of it. So he basically told me, and he's one of the guys that would know, that doing a stamped clip was going to be impossible. That was difficult to hear. But never to be deterred, I said, okay, well, what if we milled a clip? And he said that was a very bad idea. And I can confidently say 8 months later, 9 months later, 12 months later almost, he was right. It is a bad idea, but here we are, and it is what we are doing. Each clip takes roughly 30 minutes of spindle time to make. And they are very difficult to make, and they are very precise in their manufacturing. But they do exactly what I want them to do. So they are a terrible headache from a manufacturing perspective, but from a design perspective, they're excellent. Now, when I had first attempted to do a milled clip, I had taken a solid chunk of stainless steel, and I'd put it in our 4th axis. And the idea was that I was going to take basically a needle engraving bit, and I was going to carve out of this large block while it spun the shape. And that was something I went into Christmas believing was going to be the case. And I had a little bit of time over Christmas break to prototype it, and it went so poorly. It was so definitively not going to work that I had to scrap that idea. And there's a couple of reasons why. Anybody who knows anything about machining will know that it didn't work. Part of it is because it's a very, very thin piece sticking way out on the end. So that wasn't going to work. And so I went into my Christmas vacation where I went down to Texas to visit my family like I always do, which was a 20-hour drive, disheartened knowing that stamping wasn't going to work and this milling process wasn't going to work. And it wasn't until I got, about 16 hours in, I'd had a pretty good solution. And it wasn't until I finally got there that I finally kind of had nailed down theoretically how I was going to make this clip. And I frantically drew it all out, and my family will attest to the fact that I spent a good portion of the break sketching out how this was going to all work. But what I figured out that it was going to be a combination of drilling and milling on the 4th axis, and then it was going to be the clip itself, the bend, was going to be stamped into place after the fact. And that worked conceptually. And in practice, it took 3 months, 4 months of development to actually get it to be what it needed to be. And in the middle of it, I went from it being press fit, which was the original design, to it being threaded on, and that made it way, way harder because it has to be undercut to work. But in the end, it's this beautiful clip, and I'm very proud of it. We'd originally made it out of, we're going to make it out of 304 stainless. It's what everybody makes their pens out of. Almost all metal pens are made out of 304 stainless because it's inexpensive and it does a pretty reasonable job, and it's a good all-around metal. We had originally done it in 304, and then I kind of switched it to 316, which is called marine grade stainless. It's better at saltwater corrosion resistance. And I thought to myself, well, we want to make a great pen that's really really the best on the market. It needs to be better than all the others. And so making it marine grade stainless will be nice. And 316 is even harder to machine than 304, which is a pain in the butt. And so I proceeded with that mindset. And here's the thing, I'd made a couple of prototypes out of 316, and they were great prototypes, but there was a problem in that they were relatively soft. So they would get dented and scratched. And I didn't really like that particularly well because you want something that's going to hold up. And so I began to look at different options for other stainless steels. And I came across 17.4 pH, which means precipitation hardened, stainless steel. 17.4 pH is commonly used in aerospace because it can be hardened. Regular 304 stainless steel and 316 are roughly between 12 and 20 HRC on their hardness scale for Rockwell. What that means is that they're pretty soft and they can be scratched pretty easily. But 17.4 pH, when it's hardened to H900, which is the hardness rating that we're going for, becomes 42 Rockwell, which means it's twice as hard. And it actually has a tensile strength almost 5 times that, a yield strength almost 5 times that of 304 stainless, which means it's much, much better at resisting scratching and denting and all the other things. But more importantly, it meant that the click mechanism was more robust. It was more resistant to any wear or deformation over time, and it is extremely, extremely hard. So in the end, we switched to that. And the hardening process became a next thing because the clip is hardened at 1025 is what its hardness rating is. And that gives it much more spring. It makes it more elastic, but it also makes it much more likely to retain its shape than, for example, a 304 stainless one would. Now, one of the advantages of being able to twist off the clip to adjust, to clean, to do all the other things is that if the clip bends away from the barrel, which can happen when you put too many things in it, you can actually pull it off and bend it back to shape and then put it back on. So that solves another problem in that regard. And all of these things came together beautifully. We roller burnish the inside of the barrel, which increases the hardness even further and gives it a true gloss mirror finish so that you've got ball bearings that are very, very, very smooth, running alongst a mirror surface to create a gliding click that is really quite something special. And we are launching it with a pen case, a leather pen case. I'd spent a lot of time working with Merrill on how are we going to package this? And Merrill obviously did research on our competitors, did research on pens in general, and some come in wood boxes, some come in cardboard. And I said, we're a leather company. It should be a leather case. And so I came up with this leather pen case. And mine has engraving on the front of my initials, and we are offering them as a standalone product if you just want to buy the leather pen case on our website. We do offer that. But the way that our memoirs are going to come is it's going to come if you buy the pen, and that's a little bit of a foreshadowing there. If you buy the pen, it will come with the pen, and then it will come with a refill in a tube. That's a gel refill. So it will come with the Parker Jotter refill inside it, and the spacers and the springs. It will come with a gel ink refill in it, and then it will come with 2 small ball bearings in a little plastic baggie that'll be 2 spare ball bearings. And it's that way on purpose. So what'll happen is this. It'll show up. It will come in a box, but the box will have this inside it. And you'll open it up, and you can pull out the pen, and you can pull out the refill. And let's say you wanted to switch it right away to the refill because you like that. All you need to do is grasp the front and the back and twist, and it comes apart in the center. And because it comes apart in the center, you can get access to the refill with the spring, and there's a spare spring inside it because the Jotter has a much longer front than the G2. So you need 2 springs to give it that same click, and behind it is a little spacer, and that little spacer takes up things. Now, if you look at it, there's a side with a nib on it, a little nub, and there's the flat side. The side with the nub, when you're using a Jotter refill, points towards the back clicker. That helps reduce friction. And there's actually a reason that the nub is there, and we'll go into that more at a future date. Something else is coming. But then all you need to do is take the refill out of the container, put the 1 spring on it, put that in, and put the top back on it. You can tighten it back down, and you're good to go with the gel refill. Now, let's say you wanted to take it apart to clean it or whatever. You can do so by taking and unscrewing the front and taking and removing the spring tension. I cannot emphasize it enough. The spring tension needs to be off the back clicker. Otherwise, it will launch across the room and the ball bearings will launch into ether and you will never find them. It is a huge problem. So you want to take that, and then you can either use the little baggie it comes with, or you can use a little piece of paper and you slide that underneath the clip itself so that it doesn't rod against the barrel, and you just twist it off as if you were going to twist it all the way off. Now, you want to twist it while applying backwards pressure as if you're keeping it on, right? So you want to twist it the wrong way but push it back, because what ends up happening is it reveals the ball bearings and the holes. Now, the way the clip is designed, if it is unthreaded but pushed all the way up to where you would start threading it, the ball bearings are retained. They will not come out. What I like to do is I like to put my thumb and my forefinger over the holes, and then you can pull the clip off, and the ball bearings stay where they're supposed to stay, and you can look at the clip, you can bend it back, and you do all the other things. So the clip comes off. Then what you want to do is you can carefully, while over something like a leather desk pad, a piece of paper, a towel, you can slowly pull the ball bearings out. And that leaves you with the back barrel. The back barrel has two holes at 180 degrees from each other. And you can see down the front of the barrel. And then you have the clicker. And the clicker obviously has 360-degree track in it, and it's got the little ceramic ball bearing spots that are embedded in place. And what you can do if you need to clean it, and by the way, you shouldn't need to clean it, but things happen, dust gets in it, time goes on. We want it to be obviously something you can take care of over time. I like to take a little Q-tip and then just run a little Q-tip along the inside of that track. I'll run a Q-tip down the inside of the barrel just to make sure there's nothing on that. And then to put it back together, all you have to do is you simply put the clicker back in, and then you line up the channel with the thing. I like to take and grab the ball bearings by literally pressing down with my forefinger on them. And once you press down on them, they will kind of stick to your finger for a second there, and you can line them up. And I like to put, like I said, put my forefinger and thumb over the holes, so the ball bearings, and then I slide the clicker back, or the clip, back on all the way as if I was about to things all the way down, so it's right there, and then they don't come out, and then you can take and you can thread it down nice and tightly. And then it's all back together, right? And then you can reverse the process, and you can put the nub facing the clicker, and you can put the little, if you're using a Parker Jotter, you can put the Parker Jotter back on it, and then you've got the secondary spring in the front, and you can put it all together, and you can tighten it back down. So it comes in 5 individual pieces. Those are the pieces we make. And then obviously, like I said, it has the refills and the springs. We make the 5 pieces in-house: the spacer, the spacers, the front barrel, the back barrel, the clicker, and the clip. Those are the 5 pieces we make. Now, this would have been good enough. I would have been happy with this. But Merrill asked, should we do a pencil version? Can we do a pencil version? Because that's the thing people like, mechanical pencils. And that started us down a whole rabbit trail of the pencils. Now, lucky for us, there is a company out there called Schmidt that makes a mechanical pencil version for the jotter, for a refill for the jotter. So you could take it and you could put it. Now, what that means is that if you wanted to use the pencil, you could take the jotter out, you take both of the springs out, and what you do is you would take and use our spacers that we have designed specifically for this pencil insert. There is one cylindrical spacer that just literally looks like a flat cylinder. That goes in the back. And then on the front of the specific design is a little donut shape. And what you do is you take and you put the back spacer in place. You get that down on the bottom. And sometimes it doesn't want to quite go flat, right? So you got to kind of get it in place. And then you take and you put it over the front. So there's a little donut spacer over the front of the mechanical pencil. And you line it up, and you tighten it down. And now it's a mechanical pencil. And it works great as one. It does not have an eraser. That is true. You'll have to bring your own eraser, but it works as an alternative to mechanical pencil. Now, we are offering these initially as pen or pencil, and we are offering conversion kits. So if you buy the pen and you decide later, you know what, I'd rather have the pencil, you can buy the pencil conversion kit. If you buy the pencil and you say, you know what, I'd rather this be a pen, we offer the pen conversion kit, and that'll allow you to swap back and forth between them. If you buy the pencil, version initially, it will obviously not come with the spare refill because there's no spare refill for the pencil. It will instead come just with the Memoir as a pencil, and then it will have the spare ball bearings because we include two spare ball bearings in a little plastic dime bag that goes inside the case that it comes in, so that if/when you inevitably lose those ball bearings because for whatever reason they disappeared into the ether, and it has happened enough with the few prototypes that I have given to friends and family, that it's going to be something that we just expect to happen. And that's why we're including two spare ball bearings for you. Now, let's say you run through the two spare ball bearings and you don't have them anymore. We will also still have some, and we will be happy to help you. In fact, any of these pieces, spacers and whatnot, we will be happy to help. And we will sell alternatives and replacements and things like that. We will make it easy. We want to support this. Absolutely. So this has been a dream for years. This is something I am unbelievably proud of. If the patent comes through, it will be my first patent. And I can officially call myself an inventor at that point. It's a beautiful, beautiful pen. It's heavy. It's got a good heft to it. And I'm very proud of the design. Each one is hand fit and finished. They come off the mill pretty good. We make sure that happens. But then we put them together and we hand sand them so that they match front and back perfectly, so that the seam just disappears into the design and you can't even tell where it is. The clips have this texturing on the surface of them. We added a little ridge to them. I added a ridge because I like the ridge. And it's got a little M on the front for Memoir. And there's a little bit of texturing. And that is a unique pattern to each clip. Each one is different and special. And it's a little bit of how the tooling goes across the surface. And it's beautiful. And it also helps make the ridge kind of pop. Looks pretty. And each tip of these pens is hand finished. It's hand sanded, hand rounded, hand formed. And it looks really beautiful. And it works really well, which is also nice too. On the back of the clip, in a very faint lettering, very, very, very thin, small, faint lettering, it says Murdy, USA. Now, the 17.4 pH stainless steel version is the everyday carry version. It is the original flavor. It is the best all-arounder. But I have so many cool ideas for future alloys that we might do. I'm really excited for what they could be. So on the back of those clips above Murdy and USA, I'm going to put little markings like 24 karat plate or 4140 or TI 6. There's a lot of opportunities. I'm so proud of this. It is the thing, arguably, it is my magnum opus. It is the design that I am the most proud of. And it is something that I am confident when people start using them, they will struggle to go back to anything else because it is just that good. They're expensive. That's true. There's no two ways about it, but that's the reality of us having to have each one be hand fit and finished. They take hours to make. Not only do they take hours of spindle time, which they do, but they also take hours of hand finishing. And they're unique and special. And because we put so much time and effort into them, we absolutely back these all the way to the hilt and beyond. If you have any issues whatsoever, we will fix it. And all of our products, as always, if you don't like it, return it. We'll give you your money back. I want everyone to be happy when they buy stuff from us. And so this is something that I think you can be confident to buy and try. And if you don't like it, return it. But I think you will. I really do. So as of today, the Murdy Memoir is available on our website. Because these are so difficult to make, because they take so much time, and because I don't feel comfortable having people wait forever to receive their product, unlike our previous products where we make them after the order is placed, these are made ahead of time in batches because they take a long time. This particular batch of, I think, 29 that we're offering, 25, I can't remember exactly what the final number turned out to be. That batch took me 2.5 weeks to make. And realistically, we are improving our production speed. We'll hopefully have more coming down the pike, and we'll be doing them in future batches. But the way it'll work is this. We're going to launch them in a batch of X number. And once that is and then we'll start in on the next batch to produce the next batch. And there will be a gap of time between each launch when they sell out and are unavailable. And we'll have a little notify me button, which you can put yourself on a list to get notified as soon as the next batch drops. And we are hoping to have more batches soon. Realistically, and I'm very excited to say, I just had my 4th child 2 days ago. And so I'm going to be taking a little bit of time to help my wife in this recovery phase. So the next batch may not come for a little bit, another couple weeks. But this first batch is going live now, and when it sells out, just put yourself on the list if you miss it, to be notified. And then once that happens, we will be letting you know when the next batch comes out, and it should hopefully be no more than a few weeks. So you can go to the website. You can find it at murdycreative.co/products/memoir. You can also go to murdycreative.co/memoir, and it'll take you directly there. MEMOIR. You can go on the main page of the website. I'm sure it will be proudly displayed on a banner. And if all else fails and you can't find it either in the menu, you can't find it in the main page of the website, you can't find it if you go there directly, you can always email us and we'll be happy to help. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Have a great day and goodbye.